Welcome to the fireside chat between Accountfully and Noise New Media. For intro, my name is Brad Ebenhoeh from Accountfully. We're an outsourced accounting firm. I'm excited to have kind of our clients and friends, Steve, Richo, and Mark O'Shea from Noise New Media on this chat. How you guys doing today?
Good, Brad. How's it going today?
It's going well. It's going well for Thursday afternoon. So excited to chat about Noise New Media and some of the things that you guys have going on. So before we get started, just from sake of this conversation, what we're looking for the audience out there is information about Noise New, what you guys do from a business perspective, and how outsourced accounting and bookkeeping help support your decision making and growth of your business. So for those out in the audience, that's what we're trying to get to. So kind of starting off from a Noise New perspective, why don't you guys give a little background of your kind of where you came from, why Noise New, why your business partners, and kind of what you guys do and sell, and then we'll move on from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Steve Richo, and Mark and I started Noise New Media back in 2008. So we're right about the 15-year mark, which is pretty incredible.
Definitely.
Yep. And back in our infancy, I have a background in graphic design and IT. Mark's got a background in background in being a tremendous musical artist, in addition to a great marketing mind. And when we met back in 2007, before we decided to start an agency together, I had a lot of capabilities, and Mark had a lot of great ideas, and we kind of had a very interesting synergy at the start. And decided that we could kind of make something, some semblance of a business, and take the show on the road, if you will. We basically started our business back in what I would call like the MySpace era, or like the early advent of the iTunes. Like when record stores were closing around here in Nashville, and iTunes was really starting to take grip and become like a major impacting force on the music scene here. I think we saw a definite need in like record labels and artists here that just didn't have any grasp on where to start with that stuff. So there was a couple of agencies like ours in the space. We kind of took a foray into working, like I said, with record labels and artists directly, and kind of quickly realized that it's a really hard space to work in, right? And that was really hard to measure success. And why isn't, despite all of our efforts and all of our hard work, why isn't my song number one? Like a lot of really hard questions, and it was only so much that we could really do back in those days. And social media was just like a nice to have thing. It wasn't like a really required service that, or a required part of a marketing plan, which is something that was really nice. And fast forward today, it's a lot different. But we took a pivot in 2009, our second year in business, and we took a pivot into events, live events, and that's kind of the domain that we play in almost primarily today.
Awesome. Well, first off, kudos to 14 years of business. That's
It'll be 15 in April. Yeah.
15 in April.
What's the stat about businesses failing after X amount of time? I think that's something like 90% of them fail after 5 years or something.
Yeah.
We're still failing.
Especially we fail up, especially partnerships. So it's like I always joke, we haven't killed each other yet, but we've come close quite a few times.
Yeah, and you guys have went through the initial downturn in 2008, and then a pandemic, and events just basically canceling for a year or two. Yeah. So exciting to chat. What's that?
Remember when that happened?
Yeah, crazy, but excited to kind of get into some details here of everything. So number one, just chatting about kind of, iterating from, musician marketing, right, to live events. Why did you guys decide live events? Like, did you have some background into that?
Well, we were fortunate to sort of, I guess, luck our way into a couple of them early. And the thing about the record company side of the coin, so performers is, record companies are famous for wanting something last minute and then taking 120 days to pay for it and all those things. So while it might be sexy to do something for a big name artist, it doesn't actually make a lot of business sense. So I don't think we were looking to work in the recorded music space for our egos or anything. We were trying to start a business. So it didn't make a lot of hard sense there from that perspective. The live event thing we sort of fell into pretty early, which is great. And then we were very fortunate to pick up a large client early in that space, which is the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, is in Texas. So that was great. We walked over hot coals to get the business with them, and we're still working with them 15 years later. So that's been a great partnership as well.
Awesome. And then specifically related to, to events or what you guys do, are you guys physically at these events, just marketing upfront for ticket sales, promoting the event? Like what does that encompass?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, when we first started, we were absolutely all the events that we work for, right? That was like a core component to our offering. We'd actually go out there and take pictures and make social media posts, really because nobody else knew how to do it or trusted anybody else with the passwords to the accounts. So we would be those two hippies from Nashville that would, go to Texas and try and make sense of a calf scramble or try and make sense of a truck wagon race and make it interesting online, all the while assuring the organizations that we work with that it was okay for people to leave comments on the content. It's just changed so much. But we really would in the first, I would say, half of our business just promise the moon and the stars and kind of do like a lot of retainer model stuff for them. What we would say, like, we'll be your department. We'd say stupid things like, we'll be your department for hire, and we'll do anything we know how to do as long as you pay us a retainer. And if we know how to do it, we're going to do it for you anyway.
We never say no.
We never say no. Like
that's
actually
one of our phrases we used to use.
Yeah, exactly. And that was about probably the first half of it. And we've kind of come a long way from there. And kind of, once we get into the numbers and look at what's profitable, look what's measurable. Once we really got serious about that, our offering really changed around that.
Yeah, and also just to piggyback that, look what is best for the client. What is the best use of their money? Is it having us do menial tasks, or is it having us do advanced high-level ad science stuff that they can't do themselves? So just trying to be transparent about all of that as well.
Yeah. I've as a fellow entrepreneur, I understand the whole, hey, we'll do everything for you model for the first handful of years of a business, and then over time you're like, this doesn't make a lot of sense. So cool. Good. So from an aspect of, I guess before we even get started into that, like, I want like the best, most interesting story of like the fair you went to in middle of Kansas or whatever.
I don't know. Yeah, there's like
really good, memorable story.
There's been a lot of interesting things that have happened to us over the years. I don't. One year we were working at the State Fair of Texas. This isn't really that great of a story, but they asked us to go help them capture this photo moment of. It was a Texas OU game, right? So at State Fair of Texas, it's like one of the biggest events in the country. And during the fair, they have like a NCAA or a SEC football event there with 95,000 people in the stadium on the fairgrounds during the fair, right? It's just mayhem. And apparently the halftime, the marching band makes some type of a formation that looks like the word Texas, maybe. I can't remember exactly what it was. They asked us to go up to the top of the Cotton Bowl. Is it the Cotton Bowl?
Yeah.
There? Is that Cotton Bowl, and take a picture of this, moment. And I just remember being up there on the roof of the Cotton Bowl with Mark and going like, how the heck do we get up there? I'm a kid from Connecticut. Mark's from Australia, right? And we're on the roof of the Cotton Bowl during the Texas OU game at the State Fair of Texas. It's absolutely crazy. So I don't know. My point is, I would have never thought I would do that in a million years. And there we were.
I was kind of more blown out by the snipers that were on the top of that were like around the top of the stadium looking down. I was like,
Dallas police.
There's people with guns over there, and they're like,
they're the good guys.
Yeah, every game apparently there's guys with guns up there looking at people down below, like ready to take them out.
Well, you guys got there because you said yes to everything. So
that's right.
Yeah, exactly. Take a picture of the marching band. Sure. No problem. One low price.
Awesome. So it sounds like as we kind of get into more of the nuts and bolts of this, so your model back in the day, when you moved to live events was, hey, for this dollar amount, we're going to do everything. You weren't really understanding or maybe looking at the amount of time and energy you're spending or hours that go into that retainer amount. Is that correct?
That's right.
Correct. None of us were married or had kids at that point either. So it was just do whatever we need to do,
Yep. Good. So then I guess when did your, as you were kind of going through and just, hey, money's coming in the door. We're going to make this work. We're going to spend unlimited hours on these accounts, things like that. When did that starting to change, or when did your, mentality around that start to change, I guess? And when did you start looking kind of maybe like there's a better, more efficient way to do things?
Yeah, interesting. I mean, I'll be honest. I went to see Tony Robbins. I went to Tony Robbins Business Mastery Conference, and Tony talks a lot about understanding the numbers and living and breathing by that, and having a CFO, either fractional sense or full time, and really like he put our business into perspective. Whereas like we were leaving an infancy stage where in the infant stage we're doing everything we know how to do to get cash in the door, and then kind of like graduating to a toddler stage where we are doing some things and money isn't quite an issue, but we're still kind of doing everything. But that next phase required more business intelligence, or we were never going to get there, right? And I think like that was a real realization for me, and of course passed that along to Mark and said, I think we need some help. Like we've got the books kind of covered, but we don't really understand what all of it means. And at that point, we took a look at what's next.
Awesome. So before then, I guess when you were looking at the numbers, you're saying you're just looking at general P&Ls, what's in the bank account, just kind of, okay, hey, the bank account's growing, or we'll be able to take more money out. Is that basically what that looked like?
It looked like the bank account so honestly, like what's in the bank account, right? And the only time we would print P&Ls and balance sheets and all that was when we were doing our taxes.
Yep.
It's like those documents were not super relevant to us, and not something we were looking at because we're too busy, with running around with cameras. So.
Yep. And that's completely normal for a lot of business owners. Just, hey, the bank account up, great. Let's go and move forward, and without actually looking at kind of margins and different things that we're gonna get into. So at that perspective, you went ahead and started looking around, and I'm assuming that's when like Accountfully and you guys connected and started working together.
Yeah, that's right. We found Accountfully and as an agency that offered fractional CFO services like we were looking for. We had a bookkeeper that was kind of doing our books every 3 months, which wasn't working for us. But really with the digital emphasis, with the emphasis on digital marketing agencies, right, and the digital marketing playbook, which we still use today. And that was kind of a real attractive offering for us, all in one setup.
Awesome. Glad to hear that. So yeah, as we've kind of worked with you and kind of just for all the service providers, even like, anybody that's out there kind of today, right? You guys are in the creative space, marketing, right? But even accountants, lawyers, architects, whoever, like the whole goal here is a service-based business makes money based upon billable hours, right? So at the end of the day, moving from a model of just looking at what's in your bank account, general P&L for tax purposes, to more real-time reviews of cash, more real-time reviews of P&L. Like what else were you looking at during these conversations, or weekly or monthly?
Well, I think the biggest, I shouldn't say the biggest because we may have different opinions on this, but the time tracking component was a real metric that we now live and die by.
Yeah.
And it helps inform all of our decisions. We weren't doing that before. So knowing what not only each other, but our staff and team are all working on, and how long they're spending on a particular project and how much money that project makes versus, all the stuff. You spend 1 hour here and it returns X, and then you spend another hour over here and it returns 10X. Well, what should we be working on? Oh, okay, we should be working on more of those guns, so just looking at things like that.
Awesome. Yeah, it's interesting because for any kind of agency or service provider, your biggest cost is your labor, right? Whether it's W-2 employees, owners pay, or whether you use maybe more consistent 1099s or contractors. So the whole goal is what is the most, the best, most labor efficient way to use those labor costs from an ROI perspective, like you're saying. So tracking time and really having good data where you can understand what is the revenue or cash that creates, that comes in the door from this output basically comes into play. So then as you guys were reviewing kind of, P&Ls by basically, by customer job, right? Factoring in what you're bringing in, what is the cost of that aspect of labor, 1099s, direct expenses, et cetera. That's when things started like light bulbing, or, like saying, hey, how do we move forward or iterate?
Yeah, I think it helped us realize some parts of the business were extremely profitable and some were terrible,
Yeah.
And before that was kind of just based on a feeling like, hey, this feels great, I'm enjoying this part of it, and I hate this part of it. But
or this client is driving me nuts.
Yeah.
And you realize that's your least profitable client.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's quite often those two things have got nothing to do with each other.
Yep, definitely. So at that point, then it sounded like you moved, per just kind of discussing with Chris, who's your team lead on our end, plus you guys, like you moved to kind of a different revenue model, right?
Yeah, that's been a huge change for us in the last
Yeah,
couple of years.
absolutely. It gets, I mean, it's funny, you get all this data together and you get some really simple key metrics out of it. Like it helped us establish what our hourly rate should be, like our hourly billing rate. We never knew that before, right? And that, I mean, just like one of the most important things you can have in a business, like what is an hour of my time worth? And then you can basically apply that to just any other section of your reporting, and you have a lot of answers revealed. So that's like, that number wasn't something that's just that we got overnight, but took a couple months worth of time tracking. And we use Harvest, which is an awesome browser plugin to track our time and projects for all of our team, but it informs every decision that we make.
Yeah. And I think kind of a big part of this whole conversation is like, even for anybody in business, right? The whole goal is whether you're a product-based business or a service-based business, is really understanding what drives profitability of the business. And in a service-based or agency business like this, it is job profitability.
Right.
That's what it comes down to. So you can't just look at a P&L as a whole and be like, oh, I'm profitable, because you don't understand. Once you look at the 10 jobs that make up that P&L, there may be one job that literally is the most profitable by far and your biggest client that literally is driving 95% of the margin and profit. So then you may look at it and be like, let's just focus on this, or maybe
Yep.
you have 2 or 3 jobs looking at that. So when you do that, that's when very easily and gradually you can kind of, get rid of old clients, price new ones, increase rates as it is, and become consistently more efficient with your labor kind of spend over time. Well, I'm glad to hear all that, from kind of where you guys are looking at. And I think a big key and a big, as a fellow business owner, for me, it is the labor market is crazy right now. So you just don't want to go ahead and hire more and more and more and more people just to drive higher revenues at lower margins, when let's be more labor efficient, enjoy working with 5 or 6, 7 employees maybe, versus growing to 30 and being, and making maybe the same amount of money, or having a better profit per your time, because you guys have families and kids, right? Is that kind of your whole thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both, man. I think, we are still a boutique agency, and we don't want to be Saatchi and Saatchi, but we sort of are in a growth phase. And you alluded to it before about this new model that we have now from a pricing structure has really opened up the market to us a lot more. So, and that market being live events. So just really quickly, beforehand, we were working in a capacity where, it's like a traditional agency model where it was essentially a retainer or a contract, per month or per year. And we were the department for hire who did, X amount of tasks for them. And we realized that there was really only a handful, maybe 20 large scale events that could afford us, and we were already working with 10 of them or more. So there was really a ceiling on how big we could grow with that. And then so as time changes and social media changes, we've adapted and realized that a lot of what we were doing for some of these larger clients can be done in-house, or, not to belittle content creation or content capture, but, you can send somebody, an intern or somebody out to give them a list of things to take photos of and go around the grounds of an event and take photos. You don't need to be paying crap load of money to us here in Nashville
To take pictures of the pig races,
to
right?
go and do that, So then we caused us to sort of pause and say, like, what do we really bring? What is the benefit of having us versus the intern with a camera? And the thing that we were really doing that was moving the needle for our clients was ticket sales. So it was digital advertising. So before, that was a part of our business that we included. It certainly was a large part, but we did all these other things. And so when we realized that the digital advertising was what was missing from a lot of these other folks, or that they weren't capable of doing it to the level that we can, we dove into that. So we changed the pricing structure to remove all the content and all the other things, just focus on the ad science, on the digital advertising. And instead of charging a retainer, we now charge a per ticket fee, which is a little scary, but it does put us really uniquely aligned with the client's goals, which is to sell more tickets. So if we don't sell many tickets, we don't make much money.
It happens.
That happens sometimes, but generally we back ourselves and we hire great people and we try to educate ourselves continuously. And so we do as good a job as humanly possible. And if we sell a lot of tickets, we make a lot of money. And everyone's
Yeah, and it's a variable cost to the event company or to the event itself. So it's not as big of a dollar amount in as a percentage of their revenue, right? Because it grows gradually with it. So, well, kudos to you guys for just identifying that and pivoting to that model and and having success to it. Kind of one big question I do have is, since the labor market is crazy, hiring is tough, finding really good talent is tough, training them, getting them on board, buying in, the whole 9 yards. Like, when do you guys decide to hire? Knowing when to hire, where to go to hire, like what's your kind of, mindset on that?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, Brad, because I think our situation is very unique in that regard because we have a capacity to service a certain number of clients, but our clients basically end and go away after a 2 or 3 month span in a lot of cases, right? They're live events. So there's like a 2 or 3 or sometimes 4 month lead up. We have all these resources dedicated to servicing those folks. All of a sudden they end, they have the event happens, they sell a bunch of tickets. We hand them over a report, and all of the resources that were dedicated to those guys kind of get rinsed and renewed for the next client, so we've been able to take on a lot of clients with a pretty small team, which has been pretty interesting. But it's interesting. After COVID, one thing that has changed for us in hiring is, we used to be super militant about hiring folks right here in Nashville, right? Like local folks that were, sometimes we get people that had degrees from Belmont or like had familiarity or had spokes into the music industry. And we're really just, we never considered, if somebody talked to somebody outside of the state, then we would want them to move here, right? And that was the only way that we would work with them. And now, because remote work is so popular and we've got some great tools, keep track of what remote workers are doing. I think, it's opened up the rest of the country to us as far as the labor pool.
Yeah, same thing with Accountfully and many other providers. It's the supply is much bigger, and so like that's where the talent is. So you have to go there. So awesome. So kind of while we wrap up, a couple of things. Number one, you were just talking about Nashville, like how clearly that's where you guys are. Your headquarters is where you used to solely hire. Like, how has like Nashville itself impacted kind of Noise New over the last 14 years or almost 15 years in terms of maybe your growth, your decisions, kind of anything specific to that?
Well, Nashville is a completely different city to what it was 14 years ago,
Sure is.
But it's funny, man, like when I first moved to Nashville 16, 17 years ago, people were saying the same thing then too. They were saying like, back in the day, it was
Right.
totally different, now,
Mhm.
so I don't know. I don't want to be the guy that the old man yelling, get off my lawn kind of thing. There's change occurs and it certainly has grown. The city of Nashville has grown. So, it doesn't have the country and Western stigma that it might have had, 20 years ago. It's a pretty funky kind of place. But we actually just opened an office in Houston, Texas as well. So we've got Steve is heading that up. So we've got a couple of folks there, and then we've got remote workers all over the place as well, as you alluded to. So Nashville's great. It's an entertainment hub, of course, and a lot of the talent that is that we end up marketing, like your Tim McGraws or whatever, are hubbed here, and their management companies are here, and so having those relationships and working with folks here in town is valuable, I think.
Awesome. All right. The final two questions for you guys. So give me one service business do from you guys' experiences the last 15 years.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the one that's I would encourage everyone to do that's worked the best for us is to base your fee on something that's measurable, right? Which basically, try to smash through that unlimited upside at the best you can. And really, talk about driving client appreciation. Like as Mark said, when you're sitting at the same side of the table as the client and you're performing marketing functions for them, that is when it's all working, it's a wonderful synergy. And it kind of unlocks you from that, retainer-based model where you got all 12 months of your invoices already planned out. No matter how good or bad you do, you're going to get the same amount of revenue off this client. Really attaching to something that's measurable with your fee structure.
Yeah, and I would agree with that, or just kind of mirror that sentiment, like trying to go from intangible to tangible, and it's sometimes very hard from a service perspective because you're not considering or looking at it like a physical inventory product you're reselling. So how do you package that up and then identifying that and moving forward in that measurement goal? So then what's one don't for the service based business owner?
I got one. If you,
Oh yeah, I got one too, but why don't you go ahead?
Don't be afraid to leave a client.
That's a
I think
great
that
one.
would be probably one. It's tough because, reminiscing like we were before about back in the day, shit, I would walk over a hot coal, do anything, whatever they needed to keep the money coming through the door. And I think that was probably doing us a disservice. It probably inhibited us more than it did,
For a couple years.
just clinging to that stuff, clinging to that, consistent revenue, even though you need it to keep the lights on. I'm not saying you don't, of course, but being brave enough to go, this isn't working. They're never happy. They don't make me feel good. They make me not want to come to work. That's not good for anybody. You know what I mean? So not being afraid to say no to clients.
Yeah, that's a great one. I think that comes with maturity of just being in business for more, than several years and becoming more wise and getting more experience and realizing, when this person goes away, typically something else on the other side, appears through the next window and the next door, and there's the other opportunity there. But kind of scared the first couple of years and anxious in those decisions. Well, this was great. Mark and Steve, I really enjoyed the chat. Again, Noise New Media, based in Nashville. Where can people find you? What do you guys got going on in the near term? Any live events you're supporting right now?
Yeah, oh man, there's tons. So you can find us at noisenewmedia.com or Noise New Media on Instagram, or probably the best outlets to find us. Yeah, stuff's going on all the time. It's right now, it's today's September 9th or September 8th. And we just finished the Indiana, Wisconsin, and Kentucky state fairs and a bunch of other ones all over the country. And we're heading up to the Big E next week, which is the state fair for the 6 New England states. So it's a super cool event. Actually, my hometown event. I'm from Connecticut originally. So this one's in Southern Mass. Tons of local beer. I'm not giving a plug for the Big E here, but tons of local beers, lots of great concerts.
Great place.
Great overall attendance of 1.4 million, the largest event on the East Coast. So that's where we're heading next.
We had, I think 2 years ago, we had about 18 clients, and 2 years later, we now, with this new model and the growth that we've experienced, we're up to 47.
Wow. Congrats, guys.
Projection to do another 20 in the next year. So it's exciting times over here at Noise New Media, and we're just gonna keep rocking and rolling.
Awesome. When I'm from Michigan, this summer I took our twin 5-year-olds to the local county fair where I'm from, and my kids called it the Farm Festival. I was like,
Nice.
That's a great name for a county fair, the Farm Festival. So we enjoyed it.
Do they need any digital marketing, Brad?
They may check out the Saginaw County Fair up in Michigan.
Yeah,
They probably do. But awesome. And again, kudos on the growth and the just the scalability of your business and everything. And I'm happy that Accountfully could help out, guys, and really appreciate your time. And again, Steve and Mark from Noise New and Brad from Accountfully, and hope you all that listen to this enjoyed it. Have a good one.
Thanks, man.